James Ellis here. He currently is an employer branding at Roku, right? You're in
Yep,
Roku? Awesome.
that's what I do.
And he is the author of Talent Chooses You. I actually have that book on my iPad. You got to get it. And we'll send a link. It is 99 cents.
It is 99 cents on purpose. That is not a typo. That's not a special.
I
That is
know.
my effort to try and say, please, can we all get a little bit better here? It is my gift to all recruiting, employer branding professionals. Just if you get 2 ideas, it's worth the price of admission at least. So
it is worth it. Well, it's like Adam Gordon says he's building software. Was it Adam that says, or wait, maybe it's Ryan O'Donnell that says you're building software that doesn't suck. Actually, I think both of them have something like that. It's actually funny. Yeah. So he brings wit, energy, and humor to subjects you might expect to be dry. Well, you know what? Hey, we could use that. He combines years of experience helping everyone from Fortune 10 companies to 12-person agencies understand their own employer brands, activate them, and connect them to their investment and recruitment marketing. And he says, I will not respond to accusations that I was once a mild-mannered digital marketer who was once bitten by a radioactive recruiter. Okay, what's that supposed to mean?
I'm not going to talk about that. I told you. I said I would not respond to those charges.
I did see some
how dare you?
Does Katrina know?
Oh,
Katrina,
she knows.
Do you know what he's talking about? She doesn't know. She probably went to the restroom or something. So anyway,
oh goodness.
Awesome. No,
your book still here.
What was that?
I muted myself. So I was shaking my head that you couldn't see. So I wrote note.
So what does a self-proclaimed employer nerd look like on a daily basis?
That's a real tough one. It really depends on the job, depends on the location, depends on the need. But ultimately, it means putting on these glasses, I guess, to say, how do I tell these stories about the people who work here so that someone on the outside who has either a no or a limited perspective on what it's like to work here to say, very simply, hell yeah or hell no. That's really all it's about.
Yeah.
And for people who try to think about it, it's making a positive brand impression. It's trying to increase the positive sentiment overall against the audience segmentations, blah, 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 blah. You want someone to go hell yeah, or you want someone to go hell no. If you're doing something that doesn't do that, stop it and go focus on that. That's really what it's about.
What is employer brand then? Because it's like, that is another thing that, we probably could go out and get several definitions of employer brand. And I want to check yours. I want to learn.
To be fair, if you asked 100 employer brand professionals, you would get 102 definitions.
I know, that's what I kind of want to know. I'm trying to figure out what mine's going to be.
And it's fascinating because as a relatively young industry, we are figuring it out. So what so the quote unquote standard accepted wisdom is, it is the perception a stranger might have about working at your company based on all sorts of different touch points and experiences. It's things like, I used your product, I liked it, I have a positive impression. I used your product, it burnt my fingers, hate that product, therefore hate the brand. CEO is a great person, CEO is not a great person. Customer service is great, customer service is not great. The recruiter is a spamming jerk, the recruiter is a wonderful human being. It's clear about what I have to say. All those things make that employer brand. Now, that's kind of a structural academic way of thinking about it. So I think about it slightly differently. I think about this. The job of an employer brand, the goal, the purpose, its reason for being, this raison d'etre for those of you cosmopolitan than I am, it is about creating desire amongst the target audience about what you offer. And I think that definition is unusual for a couple of reasons, but the most important of which is the use of the word desire.
Okay.
And for marketers, desire is a standard process. It's a standard idea. It's a standard concept. You desire those pairs of shoes. You desire that car. You desire that delicious breakfast cereal, I guess. You create desire. That's what commercials are for. That's what advertising is for. That's what word of mouth marketing is for. That's what brand marketing is for. You're creating desire. And if you look at your standard set of recruiting idea stuff, job postings, career sites, there's no sense of desire being created. It's almost like you're saying, look, I'm just trying to eliminate negatives in the hopes that, that you avoid hating us, that you didn't apply because, let's be fair, you're just hitting buttons because you don't know where you're applying and you're just trying to avoid negatives instead of creating desire. And those two things are different. Creating desire isn't the absence of negative. I think here's a great example.
Yeah.
You're going to go to work at Goldman Sachs because you love to work at Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
Like a lot of different companies. I'm not picking on anybody in particular.
Sure.
But you don't create desire in Goldman Sachs by saying the work-life balance is going to be fantastic and we're probably saving the whales. That's not the desire you're creating. You're creating a desire for, I want a huge stack of cash. I want a big cartoon sack with like a dollar sign on the front. I want that. I've desire that. And for people who desire that thing, Goldman Sachs has created that desire. You go to their career site and you see the $25,000 watches on every single picture. You see no one's wearing rags. No one's wearing sneakers. Everybody's dressed up. Everybody's showing off. What they offer is cartoon stack of cash. Now, go to Red Cross, go to, I don't know, World Wildlife Federation.
Yeah.
Any of these companies that are actually trying to save the world. They don't say, look at my $25,000 watch. They don't talk about big solid cash. They say, this is what you desire. Saving this panda, saving this alligator, saving this thing, whatever it is. If that's the thing you desire, you want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And if you look at most companies, it's about, okay, so this company X is a world renowned leader in moving the doohickey from place A to place B. And we have a commitment to excellence. Yeah. And we hope that you deign to apply blah, 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 falling asleep. And that's not desire creation. That is all about, and I hate to say it because I'm going to guess there's some HR people here and you're going to get your feelings hurt. I'm sorry, mostly. That's because HR is not about creating desire. HR has never been about creating desire. HR has always been about mitigating risk. That's your job.
Old school HR.
Okay,
like we are trying to change.
I get that. And I get that. And I see it and I love it. And I want more. I want more. But right now it comes from that old school sense of it's all about mitigating risk. How do I not get sued? How do we not get the company sued? And therefore it's trickled into recruiting to say, how do I say the safest thing possible? So I'm not objectionable.
Yes, I do agree. It's the safest thing. So now I'm not your typical HR person. So I don't know why I just you just took me for one there on that one.
It's defensive because let's be fair. Most people, when they think of HR, they think of old school. And it is in the same way that employer brand is trying to get away from the label of Glassdoor managers. Yeah. You are trying to pull HR away from people who are trying to keep the company from getting sued.
Yeah. I know what I was saying. So actually, you know what has been really, really common? Like I've seen it on a couple Facebook groups, and like the Talent Brand Alliance and all that. People are really going and looking at how they are going to measure employer brand and their employer brand. I mean, like if you go look on those, everyone is setting their goals for the year. So I would love to know because this was, I don't know if we were going to ask this right away, but it's like, how do you measure employer brand? Because one of the things that I've talked to other people about is like, okay, we look at the quantity of people coming in the door, which the issue is that quantity is not necessarily the right metric because right now everyone is overwhelmed with people are really wondering how to measure employer brand right now. Yeah. And they're struggling.
And to the quantity question, the platonic ideal of recruiting is to have only two people apply, the person you hire and the person who is slightly less good than that person who you can say, man, they were great, but we couldn't say yes to them. Everything else is literally wasted time and energy. Too many people who aren't qualified, too many people are kind of qualified, too many people are qualified but aren't good interviewers. All those people are wastes of your time. So ultimately all you want is two. So to your point.
Well, if you can help people get to that, then we are going to be like, you just figure that out because that's like everyone's overwhelmed right now. I mean,
but
that
gets back to that idea. It's hell yes or hell no. And we're putting out this content that's all about, we have world-class benefits, said every single company ever.
Yeah,
how is that possible? How is that
worthless.
possible? Yeah. I always use an example that's outside of employer branding to kind of get people thinking. And that's this. If you were a company and you saying, why should I buy from you? When you say we offer world-class customer service. Yeah. The next question out of my mouth is, oh, you mean like Nordstrom's? Because that is a company famous for customer service. And they're famous for it because they have stories, narratives. Those are interesting words. We should They have stories about accepting products that they didn't even sell. They're famous for that stuff. They will bend over backwards. Now, if you ask your average company who says, we offer great customer service, are you at the Nordstrom level of customer service? They go, oh, no. I said, then shut up. Because that's not a hell yeah. That's a oh yeah. That's a also yeah. That's not the same thing. So you have to find, and that's my job, is to help you find what is the thing, the single thing, sometimes maybe the two things that make you special, different, unique. Now,
that makes that. That's what I want to know.
It's complicated. We'll get to that too. But
that's what I want to know.
And I'm going to get back to the metrics too, because I think
we got to talk about the metrics. You got me.
I know. Yes. Right. That's my job. It's all misdirection.
I do really want to know the metrics because people like, how do you measure? Because the things that they're measuring are all quantity, and it's like, oh, you're not going to really get down to the results.
Yeah. So I think of metrics in three big buckets.
Okay.
You've got what is your reach? Now, reach is important, but it's not the only thing. And I think of a lot of people who come from a marketing space tend to think about metrics or reach as the primary engagement, the primary, the bigger the haystack, the better the needles. Well,
sure.
That's not necessarily true if you think about it, because by the way, it's not. But that's what it is. But at the same time, anything you do, if no one sees it, if you hide your light under a bushel, as my mother would say, then what was the purpose of spending all that time, energy, money trying to tell a good story if you haven't figured out how to put out in front of the right people? So reach is part of it, but don't be married to it like it's the only thing, or it's not a KPI you want to game. It's just simply a sense of, okay, as this company grows, as we shape, as we shift, are we reaching more audiences than we were before, so that the two wonderful people who we want to apply go, huh, I hadn't heard of them before, so that they can start to tell the story.
Yeah.
The second big bucket of metrics is sentiment. What do they think about you? Do they think you're a bunch of jerks? Do they think you're a bunch of geniuses? Do they think you're a bunch of nice, sweet, kind human people saving the earth? Or you think you're a bunch of people who will push them to do the best work they can? Or do they think you're a pile of wet gray clay? What do they think about you? And if you can't figure that out, if you don't know what that is, then you don't know what to measure. You're just measuring positive or negative sentiment. Now, it's not, you think, oh, positive and negative sentiment, that's pretty clear. That's NPS score. That's what marketing does. Except here's the deal. People talk about companies differently than they talk about products. And they think about products and kind of differently think about companies. You look at a Glassdoor score, you look at any other kind of objective metric for companies, and you'll notice that the companies with the best scores are not necessarily the ones getting the best talent. They just have positive scores, or they've spammed the living heck out of those channels to say, here's more. Companies with lots of people who they can say, hey, it would be great if you left a 5-star review. They can fill those things up with 4 5s, 4 6s, really, really high scores, but without the passion of what it means to be there. Now, if you talk about a company like, and I'm going to pick on people, so I apologize. It's not meant to be,
I get you.
Not mean here, but Microsoft does not have the best Glassdoor score. They just don't. But the people who work there seem to absolutely love it. Now, is it because they're one of the average random developers in the Seattle Bay Area? No, it's because they're a certain type of developer. They seem to be a little more on the mature side. They seem to be a little more experienced. That is a kind of developer, and they kind of tend to like it more. And the people who come in not expecting that, not wanting that, they reject it. They dislike it. They don't care for it, and they leave bad scores. And ultimately, a Glassdoor score is rough because it's not a score of the company. It's a score of, and I hate to say this, but it's a score of the recruiter. And that is, if the recruiter does a good job setting expectations, meeting those expectations gets you a 5. If the recruiter sets super high expectations and you don't meet them, welcome to your 1-star score. It's a game of expectations. Now, let's go one more step.
Interesting. A game of expectations and a recruiter score.
That's all it is. That's all.
What about Katrina thinks of that?
But she agrees, because she knows that's where she's getting a lot of information. That's where the recruiters are learning about what they're doing and how they're setting it. And the truth is, great recruiters are not rose-colored glasses. They're not happy, shiny people. They're there to tell the truth and say, look, when you work at Goldman Sachs, there's a cartoon sack of money, but by the way, welcome to a 14 to 16 hour workday. Enjoy. They don't say, oh, it's great. You go home at 5 every day.
Yeah.
There's a puppy pile every Thursday. We all cuddle around. It's fantastic. Yeah. And you go and you're like, but there's no puppy pile. 1-star review. Third bucket of metrics.
Yep.
Harder one to do. And I think it's not so much about outcomes so much as it is about process. And that is, what are you doing to help recruiters and brand champions present, shape, and distribute that message? It is almost an input metric, not so much an output or an outcome metric. And I think that's where things get different. So for example, if you make 10,000 stories about your wonderful people and you don't put them out, you've done stuff but not distributed them. And so
they're just on your website. I mean, that's one of the big issues, right? We do all this, like everything's on their website, right? Oh, I did all these great videos. Great. Well, you know what? If no one ever
reads the job ad, your staff to share them, to put them out in the world, to say, this is why I think this is true. Everybody can smell a commercial a mile away. Everybody has developed that finely tuned sense of bullshit to say that's clearly a commercial. It might be true, it might not, but it's a commercial, and everything it says is somewhat suspect. But if I share the commercial and said this was an amazing commercial and true of my experience, suddenly that commercial turns into a testimonial, and suddenly it has a whole different kind of weight. So to me, it's about, how are you extending your network? How are you changing the sentiment in the direction you want to? It's about intentionality. And finally, how are you helping the people inside your company share and tell those stories? Those are my 3 big metrics. And there's lots of little teeny metrics that go into it. Yes, Glassdoor score is part of it. Yes, your number of applicants is part of it, but you have to be judicious. And if you don't have a strategy, and to be fair, a lot of employer brand people or recruiters don't, they're not strategically inclined. They just go, here's the standard list of metrics and I'm going to go by them. But if you don't know what you're trying to achieve, what good were the metrics? You have to pick your metrics based on what you're trying to achieve. And I think most people don't really kind of connect those dots.
Yeah. So one thing, I mean, I'm going to go down on this because I honestly, I'm sick of seeing it on LinkedIn, and I haven't really seen, and maybe I'm not close enough to hear about it. And I'd be interested on what you see. So everyone's complaining on LinkedIn, at least a lot of people. I shouldn't say everyone. I hate to use words like that, but about the candidate experience, right? But I don't know. I haven't heard. Do you think hiring leaders and CEOs are feeling the connection of the poor candidate experience to the employer brand? I mean, are they feeling it? Because I don't know. I mean, are they feeling it and seeing it?
There's two pieces to that question. First off, most of the people you're talking about who actually influence what the candidate experience is or what resources one puts to a candidate experience are people who either, one, haven't had to apply for a job in about a decade or two. Let's be fair.
Exactly.
Let's be fair.
I agree.
They don't know what a candidate experience looks like because last time they did this, Netscape was the thing. Okay. So let's just be clear about what we think a candidate experience is. Two, I think the industry, and again,
they'd be humbled that they had to go look for a job, by the way.
Oh God. And that's always that's every recruiter and employer brand's favorite go-to is says, go ahead and apply for a job. Tell us how it goes. But I think the other part of it is misconstruing the concept of customer or candidate experience with customer experience. Customer experience is inherently positive. I showed up, I give you white glove service. It was fantastic because in a customer model, all I want is to have a smooth transaction. I give you my credit card, you give me my product. It's safe, it's secure. You put a smile on your face, you put a smile on my face. I'm out the door, 5 stars. Candidate experience. Imagine a white glove service for Army Rangers.
Yeah.
What? How is that possible? An Army Ranger candidate experience is literally people shooting over your heads while you carry a 45-pound backpack in the mud, through the sand, under barbed wire. That is called a candidate experience that's accurate and useful because it's true to what the job is. It's not there to make a point. It's not there to say nice things about the company. It's there to say, this is what the job is. And if you can't play along, get out. And if we thought about candidate experience in the same way, yeah, we're going to be nice. We're going to be sweet. The recruiter's going to be super positive and super friendly. But it's not about white glove service. It's about how do we give you a sense of what it might be to work here from the outside. When we can't open the computers up and give you all the materials without stacks of NDAs, how do we show you what it's like? Because ultimately a candidate is making a life-changing decision on super limited information. Like if you had to buy a house based on how much information you use to pick a new job, you would literally be going to a map and saying, yeah, I think that's a good one. Hope for the best. Like you buy a house, you literally have a third party come into that house and look around, poke at all the outlets and check all the roofs to make sure it's right. You pay someone to make sure it's good, that what being said about this company, this house is accurate. You go to a job, everybody who talks about this job is incentivized to say nice things because they work there and they want you to join. It's imperfect, limited information. So consequently, you want a good employer brand, a good candidate experience is about revealing, as opening the kimono as much as possible about saying, this is the good and the bad about this experience. And again, Goldman Sachs, there's a whole pile of money, but you're going to work your tiny little butt off and that's just the game. If you don't say that, you're lying. But it's beyond transparent. Transparent suggests you just hope it happens. You need to be intentional about saying, look, these are the things that are negative and we're completely comfortable with that. We're good with that. This is the trade-off we've made. No company, no job is truly perfect or truly a dream job. There's a reason they pay you is because it's hard some days. And so what is that reason? That's why I think I'm a big proponent of saying every job posting should have a paragraph that should say some version of, and this is why you'll hate this job. And there it is. Show it. Just show it. And the more you do that, the more you build credibility for everything else you just said.
Yeah. That's one of the big complaints from candidates that, I've done some polls. Their biggest complaint is 2 things. One is the candidate job posting is too broad, and recruiters, well, it's too broad. And I mean, it's just too basic, right? Because it's a job description. And, recruiters complain because everyone applies for the jobs. Well, yeah, because they don't know whether you actually are posting the job, like person, like the right skills that you're looking for, type thing. One of the, I believe this was in your book, and I totally apologize if this wasn't you, but I believe this was, I believe that you said something in your book. I thought this was awesome. What other industry or role do we talk about where the second place, my husband calls it second place, first place loser, where second place, but because I used to do triathlons, he's like, you can get second place, you're first place loser or something like that. But anyways, we're really, once you are out of a role, you're like, never want to hear from you again. But in sales, so just think if we treated, and you talk about this, I think, that's in your book, right? The whole sales analogy where it's like in sales, we're like, hey, we're going to nurture you. But if we treated people like that, where it's like, you know what, we treat them with that thought process. Now, I've worked for companies where it's like, every candidate is a future salesperson, but we really do not have that mindset very often. And if we would, just think about the impact that could make. But, we talk about having a marketing mindset, but what about a sales mindset?
Yeah. How effective would your business be, your business, not your department, but your business be, if you sent a form letter to 99% of all potential customers saying thanks, but no thanks? I mean, you'd be like, first off, front page of Reddit, what the hell? That would be the, but that's standard operating procedure here in recruiting, because we operate in a world that there's always more fish in the sea. There's always more talent. The trick is all those fish talk to each other. So if you're hiring a nurse and you piss off one nurse, guess what? That nurse is going to tell more people about how mean you were than the one you ended up hiring. And so over time, you're complaining that it's hard to find people. That's not true. People are everywhere. They're easy to find. The trick is you're looking for people who will respond to you, but you've been busy poisoning the well for the last decade or so. It comes back to bite you.
Well, and the other thing is I think your Brian Adams, he talked about how employer brand and consumer marketing, they're different, because consumer marketing, you want, if you want to buy my product, we'll let everyone buy your book, versus in recruitment marketing, it's like, we only want certain people to buy it. So, I mean, it's a game of very quality. Different. So,
whereas every other kind of, and that's the fun thing I love about what I do, is that literally every other kind of marketing is a game of quantity. I don't care if you're selling jumbo jets, houses, or donuts. More is better. More eyeballs, more impressions, more leads, more sales, more, whatever it is, more is always better. In recruiting, you want twice as many candidates? No. So maybe more is not always better. It's a game of quality. I mean, you never say, oh, you're buying a donut. Can you tell me about the last 3 places you ate a donut? Oh, I see here that you've got a 3-month gap since you last ate a donut. Can you send me the reference for 2 people who can tell me about your donut skills, your donut eating skills? No, that's crazy. And so consequently, the fun part happens is when we take all the tools from the consumer marketing, the B2B marketing, which are great, which are valid, and just try to plug them into recruitment marketing as if it's the same thing. And that's where we're getting that disconnect. We're using quantity-driven tools and tactics and toys to try and drive a quality-driven game plan. And you wonder why recruiters are burnt out, is because we flooded them with candidates who aren't appropriate, who don't fit, who aren't qualified. The recruiters are screaming bloody murder. And what do? Let's apply more tools just from the consumer marketing side. It's like, that's what got us into trouble in the first place. Stop. What are you trying to achieve? What is your intention? And what is the tool base from there?
What do you think is holding, in some of our other conversations, it talked like the appetite is there for talent attraction, employer branding. What do you think is holding back companies from implementing, employer branding?
Fear.
What?
Fear. Total fear. It's this idea that, remember, if you've come from or touched anything about marketing, it's always about, how do I cast a wider net, right? They're so concerned that the perfect candidate is going to be outside the scope of the net they toss. The answer is always get a wider net. They're not thinking about the opportunity costs of how many extra junk fish they're going to catch with that. And the more junk fish you have, the less likely you'll even be able to spot the amazing candidate. That's the problem. They're so scared of losing some sort of perceived genius candidate that they're they might as well say, the job posting might as well be show up and then just see who applies and hope they can find it. That's like all the way to the other side. The thing is that, and this isn't me poking at recruitment marketing. If you look at brand positioning as an industry, one of the hardest things it is for a company to do is to establish what their brand position is. Think if you had an agency, maybe a recruitment marketing agency. If you just said, we're a full service recruitment marketing agency, why on earth would I choose you? Because you're a full service recruitment marketing agency? Well, there's only about 100,000 of you around the 2-mile area that you live in, right? There's only so many. And they all, by the way, say the same things. They all say they're full service. They can find anybody. They can find execs. They can find tech. They can find this. They all say they can kind of do it. And when I'm trying to figure out who to hire, who to use for my service, I can't pick between you all. Your websites look the same. Your websites sound the same. Your social media sounds the same. You all look the same to me. So how do I pick? The strong company says, we only help hire, I don't know, nurses, machine learning people, experts with 5 years experience, people who can really position themselves like, look, if you're looking for any old candidate, any old agency will do. If you're looking for this kind of candidate, we are the only agency to talk to. That is the kind of positioning your employer branding should be. Look, you're not hiring 1 million people this year. Even Amazon isn't hiring 1 million people this year. They're hiring a certain amount. So they don't need everyone to apply. They need a couple of hundred people. Amazon's a bad example because they need 120,000 this year. But if it's your company and you're hiring 20 people this year, your goal is to get 40 to apply. That's all. And anything that opens that net that says, I want more, but there's such a fear of missed opportunities, but they don't see how the brand position allows them to connect more deeply with those candidates.
So, in your book, I think you talk about how LinkedIn has helped, people start employer brand because, a lot of companies, oh yeah, I'm gonna have an employer brand person, but many companies, they don't. And how does someone kick off their own employer brand? What types of 1 or 2 things that can I do if I was going to kick off employer brand on LinkedIn? Or what would you recommend
as a project
that I do?
As a product or an idea? If you're a company and you're trying to figure out how do I leverage LinkedIn, the answer is tell some stories. Open up the kimono a bit and say, this is what we're all about. Now, your instinct is going to be to go broad and simple. And honestly, if that's your first baby step, I applaud it. Do it. Do that thing. It's better to make steps in the right direction than to make no step at all, right? You're not going to ace your employer brand day 1 or day 100. This is a process that takes a lot of time. It's a monster. Yeah. It's like, and this is back to Katrina therapy. Employer brand is very much a business kind of therapy. If you go into therapy and day 1, the therapist says, oh, you're this, you need to do that, you wouldn't listen to them. It is a process. You need to open up. You need to listen. You need to adjust what your patterns are. You need to adjust and change your perception. It takes time. There's no silver bullet for therapy. There's no silver bullet for employer brand. Even if you hire a consultant and they hand you the deck that says, here's the answer, it still will take you a year easy to do it, to get it right, because whatever the idea of your position, your brand position, your EVP, your brand promise, whatever you want to call it, you can't just say it and be done with it. You have to weave it into every strand of your company's DNA: customer service, recruiting, leadership, sales, marketing. Everything has to say and understand what you're trying to achieve inside your employer brand for it to make sense. If you tell me your company, let's say you're a hospital, and you tell your nurses, we care about our patients. Well, first off, I hope so. You're a hospital. That's your job. And please, at the same time, go ahead and identify which hospitals don't, because I think that's good to know. But if you say you care about your customers and you want to give the best care, but then having been a patient, I got really bad customer service and my bill was crazy. Guess what? Those 2 things are out of sync. They don't make sense. So the more you tell me you care about your customers, and I'm like, but I was a customer, you seem to care about me so little, I don't listen. So you have to figure out, how do we adjust messaging around billing, messaging around intake, or whatever every single process you have should be aware, if not be supporting the employer brand. That takes time, no question. And if you don't do that, you're building a split personality. What's the brand for the customers and what's the brand for the candidates, as if they're separate people. But there's plenty of studies that say they're not. For the most part, every Venn diagram of that situation has a lot of overlap. And the more you piss off people as candidates, the more you have pissed off potential customers. And that's no way to be, and that's no way to live, and that's no way to grow.
One thing I will say on LinkedIn, so I know a couple people, I would say I know them personally now, but for their companies, I will tell you, I think one is posting you have to post regular.
Yep.
And I mean, this one gal, she just posts little snippets every day. And I'm like, I can't believe, she gets hundreds of likes and she has just like positive little things. And it doesn't have to, it's the little things that make a difference. And you kind of have to get over like, oh my gosh, no one's going to like my post. And you can automate things with free tools. And
Spoiler, no one's going to like your first 20 posts.
I know.
But you have to go through that to get to the point where 20 people are liking them.
With others. It is a two-way street in LinkedIn. And I mean, it can take a lot of work. I mean, if anyone wants to reach out, I mean, part of it is, you know, you can hire a virtual assistant. I mean, for not a lot of money. I mean, there are ways
to making it easier.
There really are ways. And so, but it does take a little work. So anyways, well, so you know what, I guess, I don't know if you consult or if you speak a lot, you just have a passion around,
I'm a total nerd for this.
Branding,
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a total nerd. And that's not just me saying that. That's what Google says. If you Google employer brand nerd, I kind of own the first couple pages. I love this. So I like talking about it. I have a newsletter every week that I try and talk about it and identify interesting articles and, you know, trends I'm seeing. So that's available. You just go to employerbrand.news. Otherwise, the podcast, the Talent Cast, went for 4 years. It's on a brief hiatus at the moment. It's going to come back. I promise.
I wondered about that.
Yeah. Okay. That's going to come back. But I kind of got tired of hearing myself talk for 4 years, if you can believe that. I know it's a little bit of a shock. Yeah. I myself was a little shocked. But otherwise, I'm around on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm available. I'm a nerd. I love to talk about this stuff. So that's really the best way to find me is employerbrand.news.
Okay, got it. Well, I know like Katrina too, she's had hers like for 4 or 5 years. And so it's almost like some of the people that have had them for quite some time are kind of like, okay, that's a big commitment for a long time. So
and she even had guests and a co-host. So yeah, if you've never done a podcast, so the joke in journalism is everybody wants to be a columnist because they want to say that thing. But what happens after you've said that thing? Like the 50th column is really hard to write. The 150th, really hard to write. So
I can't imagine.
Is the exact same way.
I know. Well, hey, I appreciate your time, and we will go to Mr. Kevin. So hey, have a great afternoon.
Hey, Kevin.
Bye. Thanks.